Very concerned about the kind of education that they find themselves in with their children. Many of who are in low-income communities and neighborhoods find themselves trapped in a public school system that doesn't meet the needs of their children. They want opportunities. And so this education savings account says that the money that the state has set aside for each student will travel with the student, regardless of where the parents decide to have that student educated. I think it's a great opportunity anytime that parents have the opportunity to decide what schools are correct for their children.
I have a question for you about the economic development that you spoke of a few minutes ago. There's a lot of state effort by the governor, you, and some of the organizations that the governor has put together for economic development. It seems that most of those are concentrated in the two metropolitan areas, Las Vegas with the Global Alliance, and then also up in Carson and Reno and Sparks area. So my question is, what are you guys doing for us in the rural areas?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see much of anything coming out of the state directly to those smaller cities like Mesquite, Laughlin, Boulder, but mostly Mesquite. So what are you guys doing to help us?
So that's one of the reasons that I'm here. I've been, in matter of fact, I was in Boulder City several weeks ago doing the very same thing with small rural communities in southern Nevada. I think we can do a better job focusing on smaller rural communities in southern Nevada. Let me just give you an example. I think that the rural communities of southern Nevada are losing out on opportunities to receive grants from the Nevada Commission on Tourism to help with rural tourism.
Absolutely.
I'm the chairman of that commission. So I'm the chairman now coming out to rural Nevada, particularly rural southern Nevada, to say, are you aware of the program? Do you understand what is available? Do you understand what the process is? If not, I'm going to help you understand that process and help you get through that process. Because we gave out, I want to say 3 or 4 months ago, maybe it's been longer than that, about $1.5 million in rural tourism grants. And more of it needs to come to rural communities in southern Nevada.
Yes.
And it hasn't been. And so whenever I have an opportunity like this to come talk with rural Nevada, I remind them, let's get the applications in, let's get the events promoted, and let's use the resources that the state has.
But
so that's an example.
But what other methods, I mean, what other opportunities do the rural communities have to diversify their economies? Because as Las Vegas found out,
sure,
you know, we cannot build our entire economy in Mesquite on tourism. We want a more diversified base. So, you know, I think it's great that you're coming out to help us with the tourism and the grants and those kinds of things. But there's some other areas that you know, I think the state could do a better job in helping the rural areas.
Well, and here's one of those areas. You know, Mesquite is well positioned for logistics, warehousing, those kind of facilities, and other commercial establishments like that. One of the challenges that Mesquite has had is you've had no natural gas out here.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, there's been legislation that's been passed to promote and encourage the extension of those gas facilities out into the rural areas, including Mesquite. I think that's number one on the list as far as economic development and diversification you're talking about. We got to make sure and encourage, and I believe Southwest Gas is already coming out here, not only to your commercial centers, but also to the residential areas as well. If that's a facility that's going to be extended now to Mesquite and those resources are available, I think it's going to help a lot. According to the business folks that I've been talking about in Mesquite, to help diversify the economy and to bring the companies here. I was told that I think with the economic development efforts in Mesquite, 38 companies have declined to come here and have cited as the primary reason for that, no natural gas.
That's BS.
Okay.
I want to ask you
that's what I was told.
Questions. There's two fundamental problems with this particular area. One, you don't have labor. They think you have labor, but we don't.
Qualified workforce.
Yeah.
Workforce development.
And the second primary problem is water.
Yeah.
How are you going to reconcile the natural gas issue with water?
First of all, we don't have an issue with water.
Yeah,
well, she's wrong.
Okay, well, I mean, all I can do is tell you what I'm told by the people who are business folks here.
Yeah.
And I had the water district in a meeting with me today.
Okay.
And they didn't say that there was a problem with water.
Then I'll send you the articles and the stats.
Okay. All right. And I'm happy to take a look at that.
Okay.
I think your point about workforce development is a very good one. And the way that we've got to work with Mesquite is to, I think, partner with CSN and also partner with Nevada Workforce Development to coordinate with local businesses. And I was talking with them while I was there in terms of, is there a demand for local workforce development? Do you have the jobs, and can you actually absorb those folks who are going to be trained specifically for your facilities? And they said yes. And so I think as we work together with CSN, we work together with local communities, work together with Nevada Job Force to identify where those jobs are going to be located and what skills are needed. That's how you're going to have a developed workforce.
You got the cart before the horse. I mean, this company wants to come here and they need this kind of workers.
Yeah.
But we don't have them trained, so they can't come here because they don't have a workforce they could use here.
Right.
And you can't build them in anticipation. You know, there was a warehouse company that wanted to come here about a year ago.
Yeah.
Apparently, our city didn't have a grip on how many people we even had available here. They did a bunch of work to try and hurry up, put some ads in the paper. Would you take a job like this, and all those sort of things.
Sure.
Found out no, they don't have enough people to do that one warehouse.
Yeah. Which is why I was asking the existing businesses. I said in my meeting this morning, I said the existing businesses that are in the room today, do you have a need for more employees? The answer is yes. Do you have the need to have more workforce development within the city of Mesquite? The answer is yes. Those are for existing businesses who are here already. And then I think to your point, which is a good one, which is, okay, now once you get that workforce development, other like companies would come here if you have a workforce already developed. That's a good point.
What's your position on drilling natural gas on top of the aquifers?
Well, I don't think we have that issue in Mesquite, do we?
Well, yeah, we do.
Okay, so
Have you
I
looked at the BLM plans on where they propose to potentially lease natural gas?
So are you talking about Southwest Gas bringing out their facilities?
No,
Yeah, there's a
Drilling.
BLM plan out of the Ely or Elko office to
Lease land
develop
for
oil and gas
for
drilling
natural
about
gas
6
development.
miles from here, which would
Yeah.
be extremely close to the aquifer that supplies
Sure.
Mesquite
Well,
with
I mean,
water.
nobody's in favor of dirty water or contaminating the environment. So my position is that they ought to follow all federal and state regulations and make sure that drilling's appropriate, permitted properly.
But
whatever the law is, there are so many laws that are already on the books about drilling, natural gas, oil. Follow the laws.
And yet they keep spilling all over.
I'm sorry.
And yet they keep spilling.
Well, that's a political issue for you all. Then you need to go lobby your congressman and tell them that you want different laws. But my position is follow the laws that are in place, and if the laws need to be changed, that's a federal issue. You can
The
go
way the
lobby your
federal
congressman.
EPA and other laws are written right now, it would essentially allow the drilling for natural gas on top of our aquifers. Do you support that?
Well, I will tell you this. There are a lot of federal laws and there are a lot of state laws about drilling and natural gas and oil and that sort of thing. I think they all ought to be followed. I'm not going to accept your premise that it's going to allow the drilling on top of the aquifers and it's going to contaminate all the aquifers. I don't know that. I haven't seen a study on that. And I got to believe that the state of Nevada and the federal government would have something to say about that. And so I would say...
So you'd be willing to read the information if we provide it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd be happy to get educated more on that and understand more fully your concerns. I'm just saying, I know that the federal government has an awful lot of restrictions on drilling and oil and gas production in this country. And if there is a problem with the laws that currently exist, then we ought to make sure that they are modified to ensure that we don't contaminate our drinking water.
All right, we actually have to head out, you guys. I'm sorry.
But what? Can I take one more?
Yeah.
Gold Butte is a tourist attraction for this
Yeah.
area. And you're on record as wanting public lands to go back to the states. And yet this is federal land where our BLM officers are not allowed to go because of the problems out in the Gold
Right.
Butte region. And there's a damage assessment report. Did you read it recently?
And
It just came out in the last couple of days.
I haven't
about
read that damage assessment report. What I have done is be extensively involved with the legislature in the analysis on a county by county basis in terms of the transfer of federal lands.
But I don't think that was part of, Gold Butte was part
Oh,
of
yeah.
that.
Yeah, then
Okay,
I
that
haven't
is
seen
a,
that.
so, do you not think that is, my question is, do you think that Gold Butte is a tourist attraction and that it should be maintained by the federal government? There has been proposals that it be a national conservation area, that it, with this ancient petroglyphs that
Yeah.
is, okay. it is-
Here's my point on.
So what's your position on Gold
On-
Butte
on-
and the fact that it is not being protected properly by the federal government because of the activities of Clive and Bundy and the threats against the BLM?
Well, first off, I think that all federal laws ought to be followed. and all federal conservation areas, national parks, national recreation areas. Those ought to be hands off as far as I'm concerned. I'm not talking about, when I talk about the transfer of public lands, I'm not talking about any of that.
I know you're not. I
I'm
know
talking
you're not
about-
talking about Gold Butte, but Gold Butte is a tourist attraction for this area.
Sure, and I'm fully in support of protecting it as a conserved,
Well, there's
protected
proposal
area.
that it be a national conservation area, which would upgrade it, give us a center, a gateway to Gold Butte. It would be a part of our tourist attraction.
Sure.
You would be supportive of that?
I'd have to look fully at the analysis on that. I haven't seen it yet, but in general, I'm all in favor of protecting important archaeological and natural resources of our state. What I'm not in favor of is protecting BLM land that has none of those types of uses. I mean, you talk about, and when I talk about the transfer of BLM land, I'm talking about BLM land that is adjacent to freeways in Las Vegas.
Okay.
You can go out to Las Vegas and see the southernmost community, and as far as the eye can see, there's just desert out there, and we've got this artificial land restriction because that's all BLM land.
That's two different issues, and I know that you're supportive of the public lands transfer. But what we have out here is petroglyphs and archaeological.
And I'm in favor of protecting those kind of things.
Okay, and it's not being protected now. So if I send you the damage assessment report, you will review it?
I'm happy to review
We
it.
need a solution here when the BLM has this area as a no-go zone.
Yeah.
Because it's too dangerous.
Have you asked?
Yeah, here's what I would say. The federal government is responsible for all of these things, right? In terms of what you're describing. The federal government through the BLM and through the federal agencies have responsibility for enforcing that. Have you talked to your congressmen? Have you talked to your senators?
President Hardy?
Have you gone? Well, no. I mean, that's who it is. I mean, that's who's your elected Republican and representative here in
Not being
your
protected.
party.
Okay, so but your position
my
is
point
it should be. Your position is that it should be
If
protected.
there are important historic areas that have those kind of things that you're talking about, I'm in favor of protecting those kind of things.
Okay.
If you're talking about carving out, areas that don't have those kind of things because you got to have some huge buffer zone, I'm willing to talk about that. But as far as historical, important archaeological assets for the state and for the federal government, I think we ought to protect those. Yeah, I have no problem at all.
All right.
Have you asked the Justice or Interior what the status is on the Clyde Bundy issue?
I have not done that, no, but that would be a really good question to ask one of your federal congressional delegates.
And I assume that from what you said before, you think Clive and Bundy should follow the law.
I think Clyde Bundy and everybody in this room should follow the law.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Okay,
If you have
thank
any
you.
questions, you have my card. Go ahead, email me,
All right.
call me.
Thank you very
guys.
much.
All right, see you later. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks very much for your questions. Thank you. And I will look at anything that you guys send me, okay?
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Hey, I'll look at